Hello and welcome to the Think Bamboo podcast, the show where we unpack the professional and personal growth journeys from some of the most interesting minds in marketing and business. And today we have none other than Alba Sort. Alba, for those that are unfamiliar with you, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for having me here today. Well, my name is Alba. I'm an AI governance specialist. I focus on responsible AI ethics, and AI literacy. What that means is that I help organizations understand the risks that come with AI use and help
Mm-hmm.
them develop practices that enable them to use AI in ways that are responsible, safe, and sustainable. My background's in marketing.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
has a sort of a career pivot the last few months, the last year. And prior to that, for 20 years, I worked with organizations in international marketing and branding, mostly tech, digital marketing, health tech, that kind of space. And because of my background in marketing, I also look at AI deployment in terms of branding and communication. So how how do you make sure that your brand reflects your AI use reflects your brand values, or how do you communicate your use of AI to stakeholders? Because that's becoming increasingly a question that organizations need to give an explanation to. Whether you do it or not, you have to be deliberate about it.
Cool. Well, you're an interesting one because this is so topical, and not just in marketing, for the world. To think about AI, it's such a huge topic, and it's a in a strange way, everyone's got their own relationship with it in terms of whether they have like just a little bit or they're knee deep into it. And I'm talking from everyone from like my mum, who has suddenly learned like what is this chat GPT business? Like why isn't it also, Jamie, why is my phone looking different when I go into Google? What's this thing? Why is it changing? And I'm going, okay, this is interesting that you've got this whole, it genuinely feels like a whole new world that is coming to us. We didn't think it was coming. It's now here and we need to adapt to it. And talking of adapting, you mentioned there that you've been in marketing for quite a few years. We knew each other there's been a few of us that have been on this podcast. They must think I must just choose from the pool of these people, but from Big Mouth Media. And I assure everyone it's not, but if you are in that, I definitely put you at the top of the list. So there's a little bit of bias in there. You were in there. It doesn't have to be a certain moment, but what was the attraction or catalyst for you pivoting from marketing to going into AI governments? And from the outside looking in, looks like a huge career change.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent question. So marketing is, I suppose, my first love. But I started my marketing career working for an AI company,
Mm,
for a computer vision company many years ago. And so it's since then I've worked with another couple of AI companies in the AI space, machine learning, using AI generated assets for game development. That was before the big boom in ChatGPT. So it was like before
yeah.
then. So it's always been on the back of my mind. I've always sort of followed it with interest. Having worked in marketing over the last 20 years, I've also seen how we've increased the use of sort of automation in marketing, predictive analytics, personalization, and that in a way with, got to a point where I was like, right, okay, with now Gen AI, it feels like we have all this amazing technology at the tip of our hands, our fingertips, but how are we going to make sure that it's deployed safely and trustworthy in a way that's trustworthy and doesn't harm our reputation, our brand, and as a marketeer, that was my way of looking at it. I saw all these red flags and I was like, right, this could go really well, but unless we deploy it correctly, that could be a total disaster. So I think the next leadership challenge for many of us won't be about whether we adopt AI or not, but whether we do it well. So not whether, what can AI do, but what should AI do? We still operate in line with our values and what we stand for.
It's interesting that your first job was for an AI company. And Like, you don't have to tell me what year that was or anything like that, but considering you said, you got 20 years in marketing, I'm gonna assume that it was around 20 years ago. Whilst, yeah, AI still existed back then, right? It's like people knew about it, but it wasn't so accessible to everyone that then. Not everyone had an opinion about it, and it feels like everyone's got an opinion, whether it's like just to I don't want to completely derail the podcast, but I find it really interesting there because I want to find out about what was there, and I know we didn't discuss this, so feel free to say as much or little as you want around the differences between what you can say with AI back then and AI now, and the differences of how people are applying it, or even businesses. But just on that opinion, like that opinion piece, is I was out with my in-laws at the weekend for Easter, which now dates this podcast to whenever it was recorded and when it gets released. My father-in-law used to build bikes for rally. If people are familiar with them and the rally bikes there, and he worked in logistics, and he was all part of like what gets sent to A to B of like, okay, we need this bike part needs to go over to Holland or wherever it is, and he was the guy that looked after that from the UK. And his opinion, alongside his wife's opinion, who's a writer, is absolutely anti AI. Absolutely, like they were almost offended and I use the word, they were almost offended that I was even talking about it in a relatively positive context. I was saying, oh, it's been really helpful to do this and this. Yeah, of course you've got to be responsible. Of course you've got to use it ethically. Don't be an idiot. You apply that same logic to most of the things you do in life. But the fact that they were so anti it, and the reason being was, one, when you said there about governments, was about plagiarism. She was a writer, so she had friends that were saying, well, how come parts of their books they felt that had been stolen? And I was like, okay, that's brutal. They felt that there was not enough regulation around what data was out there, not enough. And when I say regulation, I can't say where their son works for, but for a company that had an issue with hallucination in reporting, and that was not a good thing. So that they were absolutely against it. They were also kind of amazed that I thought that, like, I was like, wow, you seem to know a lot about it. And they're like, no, we know, we've used ChatGPT. We know all about AI. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's where we are, and all of it there. But that was the story of like putting that out there to more people have an opinion about this now than ever before. And actually, you were there when regular Joe Blogs didn't have an opinion. They didn't have a clue about it. They didn't have access to it. They wouldn't have given a hoot, to be honest. They would have just thought AI was something that was on TV in sci-fi films, and that was about it. So to go back to you and your first job here, can you tell me what there's going to be a lot of differences, but what are the first differences that come to your mind of what you're looking to govern now compared to back then?
That's a very good question, Jamie. I'll try to see if I can give you a coherent answer. So the first thing to understand is that AI has been going around for donkeys. Like it's, Alan Turing. We've all heard of the imitation game,
Yep, yep.
the Turing test that dates from the 1950s. The first chatbot that was ever created is from 1966.
Yeah, yeah.
Isa. I mean, this is technology that has been around for a long time. However, it's pretty, we should all understand that AI is like talking about animals. And you can have a mosquito, and you can have a whale, and you can have a dinosaur, and they're all animals.
Hmm.
So the term AI is actually not very helpful at all if you need to know a little bit about the space. So I think that the boom that we're experiencing at the moment is linked to generative AI, which obviously with OpenAI, this all dates from 2020, 22 November. But before this big sort of change in paradigm, this sort of new product that appeared and changed everything. And as you said, it was a bit of a sort of internet moment, almost like, oh, there's a before and an after,
Hmm.
and there's many parallels to that. There's the parallel of, oh, we need to be using AI, or like we used to say, we need a website just because it
Yes,
was there.
yeah.
There's been traditional AI has been around for a long time, and we've been using it. Well, it's been around us for many years, and having worked in digital marketing, you will have seen that as well in the last 20 years, that how much we've been sort of the use of this sort of more traditional AI has been there with like predictive analytics and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just obviously Gen AI does change things because it suddenly becomes capable of much more. And much more is going to come still as we adopt agentic AI and AI that's a lot more autonomous, that basically uses Gen AI in a more autonomous way. But going back to what you were asking, this area of technology has been around for a long time. It used to be much more, so traditional AI is about having, it's a lot more precise and exact and square and grounded in mathematics, whereas generative AI, you've mentioned hallucinations, which is the word that we're using to say errors, because that's what they are. So
Yep.
it's because it has this sort of creativity, it's prone to error, creativity, inverted commas. So it's about understanding there's a different beast. And I think the better we can understand what AI is and how it works, the better we can use it. The less likely we are to make mistakes, such as taking certain outcomes and treating them as you would have the outcomes of traditional AI, like, yeah, there's this fact, and understand that it's just like an approximation based on probabilities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, yeah, so yes, it does. I was thinking, like, you've mentioned a lot of terms there, and I'm not wanting to get into like a technical deep dive, because, however, as I say that, you mentioned a few types of AI that someone listening to this, they might not even know that there are different types of AI out there when they've heard, wait, what's the difference between generative AI and this agentic AI? I thought AI was, in its most basic terms, I thought AI was Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, if I'm stuck in that world there. I've heard of Claude, I've heard of Perplexity. Like, what's the difference here? And that's so. I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you able to give like a little bit of an outline of what those are and what they mean?
Yeah, sure. So again, three types of AI, just making it very, very simple within the whole realm. You can go deep into these sorts of aspects, but basically, AI has been around for a long time. What we call traditional AI has been empowering computers for a long time. It's about giving computers instructions and then they do things. And then you have an outcome. And these instructions have to be given by a human, by a programmer, and they're going to give you, this is what powers, I don't know, credit ratings, or it's all about looking at data and coming up with an objective number. So there's a lot of hardcore mathematics involved, but it's programming. Generative AI is different in that you're no longer talking about certainty and precise numbers. You're talking about probability, the likelihood of certain tokens, or to simplify it, words being together, and kind of how likely it is, what's the next word based on the context that I have.
Yep.
And because of that, it's non-deterministic. This is very important to understand. We're no longer in a world where 1 + 1 = 2. We're in a world where, depending on how you're asking the question and depending on the context, it might have an answer or another. So that's why Gen AI is an amazing tool, but you have to understand that whatever answer you get could change depending on the time of the day you ask that question, depending on what AI you're at, a model you're questioning. I mean, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, as I said before. It's undeterministic.
It's so variable, and you've kind of hit the nail on the head with them. I mean, so many of our clients are asking, like, hey, can we measure this prompt? Or let's look at this, make sure that we're coming up for this prompt. Like, I've gone back, I'm now being quite blunt and brutal with them to say there is no point in doing that right now, because depending, like you say, time of day, whoever, like, they might frame that prompt a slightly different way. But also, if you could have 100 different people say the exact same prompt, and they're going to get a different answer for whatever they're looking at there. So why are you going to do that? That is so difficult to measure. Your sample rate is not going to be the same. And they go, so I just was treating this as if it was traditional search. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is a completely different ball game. Don't believe. I'm going to cut this because this is probably going to come a short of its own. Of like, don't believe the hype. Don't, like, all these AI visibility tools that we're seeing right now. They're saying, hey, we can give you this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, it's this nonsense. It's just
Yeah.
nonsense. I had a demo 2 days ago, and not that I called them out on it, but I said, hey, I'm going to do this prompt right in front of you right now, live in this call. Can I share this here? And I saw the different answers, and they're like, "Oh, we can't do that." I said, "So why is my client looking at buying this?" And I know that can come across as quite bullshit, but I needed to show, like, you can't be telling someone that you're going to be able to monitor this prompt here and this is the exact answer when I can do it right now in front of you and I'm going to get a different result. You can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that there, Alba, because you are in a field right now that is advancing so fast, so quickly that I'm genuinely struggling to keep up. I think most people are struggling to keep up. I try my best to keep up to it, what is going on, at least be aware, because my clients are going to be asking me these questions, and so I want to be informed. But I don't live in it day in, day out. Like I or at least it's not my at my forefront like it is for you. At least there's some consistency with SEO and content, right? And digital strategy, where I can go like, okay, the fundamentals are roughly there. I can follow these. This podcast is about personal and business growth, right? So this is particularly about you at this moment, where how in the world of AI and the advancements that's made so quickly, the changes, the unpredictability, everything that comes with it, how do you stay on top of that without reaching like a burnout stage of just going like, I'm constantly on this. What I know today might not be fully relevant next week. That must be exhausting. That's my thoughts on it. But how do you navigate that?
Yeah, the AI, the world of AI is absolutely bananas. Every week there's dozens of new things happening, and as you well said, it's unrealistic to want to keep on top of everything that's happening. So when I get to the point where you're like, this is happening, I need to know, da da da. I try to focus on the fundamentals,
Hmm.
the evergreens of responsible AI and AI governance, your frameworks, your ethical principles, your regulatory requirements. Yes, when there's regulatory changes, then of course you have to keep on top of that. And I'm part of a very active community, a very inquisitive community, the AI governance professionals. And we kind of, we share information and connect with colleagues all over the world and to see what's happening in their respective countries. And then there's things that you absolutely black and white need to know about, but there's a lot of noise. Loads of companies appearing and saying we can do this, but loads of crazy claims, as you were saying earlier. And then when things get a bit, okay, let's go back to the fundamentals, to the what really really matters, and how we can really help companies, organizations in their day-to-day running of AI. This feels a bit like Mark Tech 15 years ago. There's new companies appearing all the time, new capabilities, and then they will be, quite a few of them will be swallowing up by other bigger organizations, and the
Yeah.
landscape is going to be very different in just, I wouldn't even say in 5 years' time, maybe like in 12 months' time,
Hmm.
because the pace of change is insane. But even so, it's kind of almost being agnostic with regards to the tools, understanding the principles, how they work,
Yeah.
and that the models change, because models change all the time. There's models, there's the sort of the models are there's new models being trained all the time. Depending on what you need, you might need one model or another model. So it's like being model agnostic, understanding what you need, and then trying to figure out the tool that helps you without becoming you know too tied up on the in the sort of FOMO hype of, oh, what's the next shiny new toy that's around the neighbor. Yeah.
Yes, I love that you've said about being channel agnostic. I've not used that term yet, but I love it and I'm going to steal it because I was just thinking there about how have I described this to clients, because they all, like most, ask me, hey, what should I be using for what, and I've kind of got my go-tos. That's fine. And they were like, oh wait, so you don't just stick to one? I'm like, oh no. And like, no, I don't use that. I need to use such and such for, let's use an obvious one like nano banana for any imagery. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, use it responsibly, anything like that. If there's anything a bit more technical, I tend to use it for like Claude, for example. I think that's a good one there. That's the most popular one right now. But to be channel agnostic, I'm going to use that approach from going on. Now, you're clearly quite AI literate and know about what's been going on and have a pretty good understanding about what could be coming down the line during the road. Now, I'm going to share a bit of myself here to hope help this question is that on this brand new world that we're going into here, there's some learning curves that are coming with learning about AI tools, about what is like the governance, what you can't say, how you should be framing it, how to use it responsibly. Just all of that. I'm not just talking about like, hey, how did you learn how to do a good prompt? Like, no, no, no. You're way past that. And I'd like to hope that people listening to this are past that too. What's been the steepest learning curve regarding AI governments and your own learning of it? Let's say in the last, say the last 2 years. Last 2 years, that's where like there's been a big hike. What's been the steepest learning curve that you've had to go through?
I think as someone with no technical background, and by technical background, I mean, proper sort of developer and
Hmm.
programmer
Hmm.
background. Um, I think if you've worked in digital marketing or websites, at some point you've had to learn HTML. I'm not counting that as technical. Um, it's it's when you work with engineers, sort of moving the shift from understanding AI as a concept to actually seeing how it works operationally, how it fits in the life cycle
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
software development, and then so you can know enough about it that you can talk to engineers and developers and Q&A people and different people in the that will be working with that AI model. So I think it's important to also sort of remind myself that as an AI governance professional, what we do is almost we're a bridge between the different departments to
Hmm.
get the
Hmm.
house. We talk to legal people and to product marketing people and to the operations and development team, to senior leadership, to HR, to whoever happens to be there. Privacy, obviously. And loads
Yeah.
of privacy professionals are now having to do governance at the same time or being asked to do it as well. So it's about, a lot of it is about asking the right questions and making sure that you know enough that you can bring people together to discuss things. There's also a lot of translation of terms because people in marketing say one thing and legal call it something else, and then the techie people call it something else, and making sure that we'll come together and then can understand each other. That's been a challenge, and that implies understanding enough of the technical side of things to be able to speak to
I think that's
developers.
fascinating in terms of the way that I'm relaying this back to myself in my mind is that I've worked with a few for and with a few financial services clients and businesses, and just working with legal, working with the marketing team, working with then like the product experts, wherever that is, and trying to get a common language amongst ourselves, even when we think we've got it there. Now, like with AI, there's some of the terminology I still think is a little bit undefined, and I'm guessing with like, tell me, are you part of that team that's within the businesses that you're working with? They help consult with them. Are you helping define what that common language is so that because they might all three of them might be saying like the departments you've said might all be saying the same thing, but coming at it from three different ways, and you're trying to unify them together.
Yes, in that one of the things that and you can, in fact, you can apply it to any businesses or any. I mean, I did that, for example, when I was working in health tech. Uh,
Hmm.
came CMO came in and he made us take the same um, course, so everyone would be able to speak to each other using the same words. So in a way, that's a bit what I'm trying to do with the clients I serve is go in, have these conversations with people from different departments coming together and kind of going, right, this is what AI is. This is how it works. Okay, right. The guys at the back, you're the techie guys, you know this, but not everybody understands it. And, feel free to chip in with whatever. But then understand what AI is very good at, what AI is not so good at, what definitely is not a good idea to use AI for.
Yep.
And then, you know, bring everyone around the table to talk about how they're using it, in which way, and what, where they see the risks. Because the things with AI, the thing with AI is that depending on your background and your expertise, you will spot things that others might not spot. So that's the
Hmm.
value of bringing everyone together. And that's why governance is so honors to apply well, because ideally you want those conversations happening highest level of the company between leaders in different departments, because as we were saying earlier, this completely changes the, or has the potential to completely change the way we work.
Mhm.
So it is important to put the time to see how a lot of the time good AI implementation is going to require rethinking operations and processes. So, and it's almost like you're using the excuse of AI governance to say, right, okay, we need to keep checks on this. How are we doing this across different functions in the business?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, hopefully.
It does make sense, and I know that we didn't talk about it, and I'm not wanting to, like, it's just because 'cause you've got the knowledge, and it's absolutely fascinating because you like, uh, not spoken to anyone else that's gonna have as much knowledge as you in this, is what's been the, like, the most, over your journey here of starting with AI governance and taking that there, what's been, like, the most common, like, discrepancy you see between departments there in terms of terminology and understanding of AI, or where communication failed because procurement meant X and marketing meant Y, and someone used a word when they shouldn't have, and it's like, oh wait, that's not what we meant, and you've had to come in and fix and go, actually, this is the language we use, this is it. Now we're all on the same page and we can all go forth.
I think that I'd say that one of the challenges tends to be, because again, because of your background or what your personal biases might be, some people or some departments are more likely to embrace AI, or what they think is AI, or what their vision is for what AI is, without really understanding what. So I'll explain it in a different way. I think it's important to understand again what AI is good at, what AI
Yeah.
is not so good at, because if you understand the way it works, you get that aha moment and go, oh, right. So that's why if I want this kind of information, I'm better off doing a Google search minus
Yes.
AI.
Yeah.
And that's why if I want this other thing, then I'm fine talking to Claude or whoever is your AI of choice. I think there's that cultural barrier. You might have generational opinions on what is a good use of AI, whether it should be used at all. Or you could have, I'm personally really worried about people now entering the workplace for the first time and the challenges they're finding, because all the entry level jobs are taken away by our AI assistants. And
Yeah.
what's going to be happening in sort of mid-level management in 5-10 years time? You won't have that talent coming through the ranks. But even for the young generations, the whole idea that, well, I'm no longer that worth much for our company because what I can do, an AI can do. I think that's really, really concerning. And that's again is cultural, because it doesn't really that doesn't really reflect the value of an individual. It's something that's head. So there's loads of preconceived ideas we each have in our heads, and that's why it's good to sit around the table and go, right, okay,
That's
let's see where from.
I've told this story before, and I won't go too far into it, but it'll be the first time you hear about it. I'll just do the shortened version, where to know what AI is good at and what it's not good at, and where I think AI is not good at is creative ideas and the execution of it. I don't think that doesn't replace a human taste. Like, so it's like going, actually, is this good here? I don't think it can do that. And it's like, we know that it's predictive. It learns from what's out there. And the story that I've got is a company that I worked with, for a company I've worked with who shall remain nameless and all the rest of that. There got a little bit too gun ho with the scalability of content creation. And yeah, they something like 800 and something pieces within like a year a year space. I'm thinking, even just to say daily, like, why are you like, what are you doing? Stuff.
Yeah.
And it was done pretty poorly. The whole reasons for the execution, but essentially what it did was it really damaged their brand reputation for, like, internationally, because they had given, the situation is that they had given someone the tools to hear the AI tools. They didn't speak the language that they were actually targeting for the content they made. They generated so much stuff, didn't really check it, didn't realize that there was punctuation, grammar, all the rest of it, and also just not true. As I was reading it, going, well, that's not true. Also, this reference here, that doesn't exist. Oh my goodness, you've got like the 404s that you're creating across your, anyway, all of that. And I was like, it's not really good for that. And they thought, oh, but they said we could use this to write. We only have one writer. And we found out that he could publish, 3 or 4 things a day. So we did. I was like, right, okay. So he was genuinely processes. He went into ChatGPT, said, I want article on X, give it to me in 500 words, whatever his prompt was. It was, again, thin. And then did that. And I was like, oh, man, it's not good for that. This is the danger. And at that point there, I wouldn't say many sites knew that, they got the new tool, they abused it, and then found out, actually, this isn't good for me. How do I get rid of this? I'm like, oh, this is the problem you've caused at scale. Just because I've forgotten who it was. Maybe it's in Jurassic Park. It was like, we spent too much time thinking about what we could do that we didn't spend time that should we do it, whatever the paraphrase is. And well, they did it. That's, yes, go to your point there about what it can do and what it shouldn't do. But to go on a little tangent here, because again this is all about personal growth, I'm always interested in seeing where people have come from in their career and where they've got to and what's led them to the moment here. Because I was about to say, we're a respected marketer, as if that had just been cut off. No, it hasn't. Our respect marketer. You now work in an AI governance work with Scottish AI Alliance, and that's awesome. I'd love to know that where across your career, because and I asked different marketers this to see like what was like a point where like, this is a learning moment for me here. So to put back into your marketing career there, where has there been a project? And if we could tie this back to AI, and that's awesome, because and the reason why I'm doing that here is because there's no one else we've had in the podcast that's got the credentials that you have in this, like, other than, hey, I've used Gemini quite a few times. So I'd like to know if there's a project or anything you've worked on that maybe didn't go the way that you wanted it to. And then what was the learning that you took from that that's made you like essentially better, help you grow in whether that's marketing or AI governance?
That's a excellent question.
You don't have to say names or businesses or anything like that.
One thing that I've seen a few times in my career, and when I was supporting senior leadership, and you kind of get that gut feeling that I'm not so sure, but on paper things look great.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part of you that instinctively is kind of thinking, I don't know. And then things don't go according to plan. And then you go, right, okay, I should have listened to that nickel that I had. And one pattern I have seen is that it tends to be when, even if, as I said, things on paper look great, and all the, say, mergers and acquisitions, that's a big one. Or like
Yeah.
when a gets bought by another big organization, there's that moment of, yeah, everything looks great. The CEOs love each other. The numbers get signed off. Due diligence goes through. Yeah, we're becoming one entity. And there's the human side of change that gets overlooked. And you need that cultural alignment as well as, everything else. Because that cultural outlook, can make a massive difference in whether things are
Mm-hmm.
successful or not. And it's an intangible. It's really quite, difficult to pin down sometimes, hence the gut feeling that you might think that it's because, technically or strategically, everything makes sense, but actually the fit is maybe not that great. And yeah, so I think it's about being quite honest about that. And I think it can be linked back to AI adoption, because AI adoption, it needs to be unique for each organization. Why? Because all organizations have a different culture, they have a different appetite for risk, they have a different growth vision for themselves. And whatever you do, or different values or different priorities, whatever AI use you make needs to be in line with all that, or it's going to be a complete disaster. You can't make people embrace AI if they're not ready
Mm-hmm.
to. They won't do it overnight. You need to think that thoroughly and sort of give them the tools to understand why that's important, or they won't do it. And also, the AI risk that you're happy to live with has to be in line with the type of organization you are. So, of course, highly regulated organizations tend to, going to have a very different AI strategy adoption than, say, a startup. And understanding that again, I think is very important. How unique it has to be to your case.
I like that you brought up there about essentially the change management and the culture parts in that, because a company I used to work for was all about being aware, like your self awareness and how people will react to change, and some are gun ho for it and go, yeah, sure, we're in there. Some are very reluctant and will need all the information before they budge. Some might have like, let's say with AI, there could be one about personal values that they feel like it's going against them, and how it's not my job. Well, it is my job to understand that and know about it and reflect to that. How I have tried to navigate that myself, because like there's that I had same thing about either with Think Bamboo or myself there, is I wasn't comfortable with, I mentioned there when I said about, okay, for imagery, Nano Banana and stuff there, I'm like, I'm actually not comfortable with me or my team using a tool that can generate something that I don't think is quite right, what that does to the environment. So like all of those parts would go, actually guys, I want to be like, you have to give me a really good business case as to why we need to be using that and when we're going to be using it. Because just for something arty, I'd rather I had one of the team use their brains and their tools to actually create something unique and they own that doesn't err on the side of plagiarism, because it's had to take it from somewhere. That part there. So my question around that is, I'm going to skip about because I knew that we've got questions here that I wanted to touch on, but you've actually like naturally gone to an area that I'm quite interested in about a specific. So I've got my questions here and I want to make sure that I get this right, because you worked with quite a lot of brands. So I want to get it right. That there, if anyone's wondering what's Jamie doing, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to figure out like what are the global brands that you've worked with there. Anyway, you've worked with quite a lot of global rebrands in your marketing career, right? And what I want to know is, talking about personal resilience, how have you been able to maintain your own personal like ethics, values in amongst those organizational changes, such as uh, a rebrand where there will be change. So yes, I mean, we've gone through it. I'm not wanting to go through it like our big right, but when Big Mouth changed to LBI and then Digitas and all the rest of that there, I knew there was some, we've had Stephen Mallon on the podcast, so he knows, right? I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say to him. There was some reluctance, and what does that mean? Oh no, I'm Big Mouth forever. And then the LBIs come in and say, what was the big deal? Who cared about Big Mouth? And all of that jazz. But how did you navigate that?
I think that, as you said, whenever you talk about mergers, acquisitions, rebrands, that's sort of high pressure, high stakes scenarios where there's a lot of emotional and cultural elements
Hmm.
as well, the strategic vision for the change. And it's a tricky time. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's loads of big questions up in the air. And if you're leading a team in those circumstances, we're not going to have all the answers to that. And it's okay to say you don't have the answers. What your team will be looking for is um, an anchor.
Love that. Yes.
Their sense of loss or uncertainty, they need an anchor, and you need to be that anchor. You need to be there, ground them, provide them calm, provide them stability, give them the idea that, it's okay, we'll get through this together, it's fine, I don't have any more information, but it's okay, we'll get through this. And I think this is, again, bringing it back to AI, this is a lot of what we have to do as leaders in this
Hmm.
day and age,
Hmm.
with the changes that AI is bringing, the impact's going to have on everyone's jobs, the things that we can't even imagine at this point. Yes, the emotions are running high, and we have to be those anchors. We have to bring that sort of grounding to the people in our teams.
It's lovely. I love the thought of being the anchor there and bringing everyone together. And talking about bringing everyone together, you work with, as part of AI governance, you work with the Scottish AI Alliance, which I I was in awe, if I was quite honest, where, oh, I've forgotten the name of the exhibition. It was somewhere in Dundee, Rural AI Roadshow. There we go. I had to like go back into the breast of the mind there to get the name, and that's where I saw. And you're probably familiar with her. Her name was Dawn
Dawn,
O'Hara.
yeah. It's amazing.
Yes, she was fantastic. She was wonderful, and to the time I sought her out, which sounds quite aggressive actually saying that out loud, but I wanted to go speak to her and say, hey, you did a really good job there. I was really interested in everything you talked about. But look, so you're helping, you're working with them. Part of the word that she used, and I'm wanting to use my words carefully here, was when she was saying, yeah, we're collaborating with a lot of different companies here in public and private sectors here. There's different, there's obviously the pros and cons of them both, of how to work with leaders and their experience there. I have worked in both sectors myself and have seen ones that are a bit more flexible, some that are a bit more rigid, all the rest of that there. Coming with your AI governance lens and your experience of helping these brands here, can you tell me what you've found to be the differences and the similarities of adopting AI governance within the public sector and the private sector?
So obviously, the Scottish AI Alliance, their public sector, they look at AI in considering the wider impact on society. So their big emphasis was on adopting an AI that's trustworthy, ethical, and inclusive, and obviously for the public good and leverage AI in that way. In the private sector, however, a lot of the time we're under incredible pressure to adapt and adopt and grow and take up this sort of tools very, very quickly, almost like, especially in the UK where we don't have regulation like they do in Europe, there's this feeling that anything goes, just get on with it and start using AI. And I think in an ideal world, you would want both mindsets brought together. So you have to be agile, you have to be sort of get that sort of growth mindset, experiment, don't be afraid to try new things, but at the same time, do it within a framework that ensures that your AI use is ethical, sustainable, safe. And again, a lot of it, I think, comes down to that AI literacy and understanding what AI is and how it works and what it's good at, what's not so good at. And once you have that, I think you can be a lot better at adopting it in a way that's not harmful or not too harmful or more responsible. I think it's the ideal scenario would be for those two visions to come together, that
Mm,
quest for innovation with the wait a second, let's do it, but in a way that's responsible, like we can keep track of, and we kind of
mm.
know when things don't go quite to plan, we can reverse back and sort of think about it and then try another way that may work better. So yeah, very interesting,
Yeah.
very, very amazing team, the Scottish AI Alliance.
Well, I'm glad of their existence because I watched others in that room go, yeah, we are not as prepared as we should be. And I was going like, wow, okay, this has been eye-opening to me about where I can pull my socks up, but also in the I can't get the name of the business, but there was one financial services company that genuinely picked up the phone to their colleague, whoever it was, and said, pause what we're doing. We are not compliant. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. And I'm glad I'm in earshot of this because watch that, got the news, stop what we're doing. I don't know what they were doing, but whatever. That was quite funny. Alba, I like to ask a couple of questions to everybody that is a guest on the podcast. And what I would like you to do right now is to cast your mind back to your first, well, the first, or maybe it was the AI place your first job?
No,
Okay, well,
but we're quite close to the start. It was my first marketing job.
first marketing job. Okay, well, I
Yeah.
want you to go back even further than that and think about the first day of your first job. You've come out into the world. You're now a professional, and if you do, you might not. I would love to say what is the advice that you would give back then to baby Alba?
I'd say you think you've finished your university degree and that's you've finished your sort of learning era. Well, it's not how it works, baby. You prepare to be a learner for life. You'll never stop learning, and because there's things and opportunities that will come up in the future that you can't even imagine now. Um, you have to stay curious. You have to continue to ask questions. You have to be open to changing the way you've thought about things before, because um, there's the future's super exciting, but we don't really know what's going to bring. So that's what I would say. Just be a learner, embrace being a learner for life.
You know what? That is, I love that answer. And the reason why is like, you're clearly a very clever person. And I say it because like you're doing things that I genuinely like, oh, wow, that's like, you get into the detail, the real detail of things and all amongst all that. And the key part that I've seen with people who have that mindset is what you said there about never stop learning. Like it's natural for them to have that curiosity within that. And that's something that I love about other people going like, oh, if someone's like that, I'm more inclined to go towards them than someone goes, I don't need to know that. It doesn't matter. I'm like, okay, I would want to know. So let's go there. Second last thing I'd like to ask is for everyone in the success of their career, there's usually takes a village to help raise them up and give them the opportunities, open doors, all the metaphors that go in a positive way. I like to end these sessions by asking, is there anybody that you would like to give kudos to, a thank you to for getting you to where you are today?
I've been very lucky in my career in that I've worked with some amazing people, very knowledgeable colleagues, happy to share their expertise, loads of inspiring managers. I've also had the odd manager that wasn't that great, but you always learn from people. And I think that in that respect, I've been very fortunate in my career, and especially peers in different disciplines, different, just you learn so much from just being with other people next to others. In terms of kudos, I am very lucky as well with my family, and
Hmm.
my siblings, brother and sister, they are both successful managers in their own right. They have very successful careers. From my brother, I've learned that it's very important to listen to other perspectives, even when you think you're completely right, and to have the humility to change your mind if they convince you that you're wrong. It's an acquired skill, and
Hmm.
he's much better than I am, but he's incredibly good at that. At just sort of, if he realizes that he's been in the wrong, rather than sort of cling on to that idea that is beginning to shake, he'll just go, all right, okay, fine. Let's I changed my mind. And I really admire that. And then my sister's been very inspirational, so that she has that resilience and that ability to continue, like reinvent herself and pivot if necessary, but being very coherent with herself and her values at the same time. So pivot
Mm.
to embrace the opportunities, but stay true to who you are and what you value. Yeah. So
I love both of those. For the first point, I genuinely believe that like ego is one of the biggest barriers that we have to growth. When you think that you know it all, or pride just getting in the way of learning and going like, it's okay. Like genuinely, if you say, okay, I was wrong, it's kind of over. Like it's okay. The conflict is gone. Like it's okay. Well, I love that. Well, here, thank you so much for your time, Alba. I really appreciate that. Is there anything you'd like to share in terms of what's next for you, where people can find you? What's next for Alba?
well, I'm developing my responsible AI portfolio. I am super excited about a responsible AI workshop that I have just launched.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's something that I think can really, really help businesses and organizations to get that groundwork.
Cool. Tell me a little bit more about this. You've got a workshop here. What's it about? Who is it for? When can people do it? Where can they sign up? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so it's about what we're talking about. It's sort of looking at what AI is in the house, and that includes shadow AI, which is a
Mhm.
sort of slightly Star Warsy
I
way
love
of
it.
defining the AI that people are using without the organization necessarily knowing about it and it not being governed anyway. So it's like the chat GPT on their phones or their
Mhm.
um, personal use of Gemini or whatever it is. Yeah, so and then looking also talking about what AI is good at, what AI is not so good at, getting people to that aha moment, and then bringing that together with sort of like an acceptable use policy, not just AI governance, policy, because that's a paper that nobody looks at. It's more about, right, what do we agree is fine to do? What is not so good to do? What data should never go into an AI? What we have to be particularly careful about? And then, yeah, get that common language shared across departments. And also, I personally think that there's so many little steps we can take to make a more responsible use of AI, specifically in the environmental impact aspect of
Hmm.
AI,
Hmm.
sustainability of AI. And again, it's all about educating people and getting them to that point where they go, oh, right, okay, so this is how I should structure my prompt. So this is why I should never say thank you to an AI because I'm just wasting tokens, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And that's all. Yeah. So I'm super excited about that. I also have a Substack that with a couple of colleagues in the governance space. It's called the B side of AI.
Hmm.
And yeah, for anything else, I'm on LinkedIn, Alba Sort, and I have my website, albasort.com.
All the
Yeah,
good
that's
places to
what.
find you.
Yeah,
I love the sound of that course. I'm going to use that. I'm going to clip that, and everyone's going to get to that there. That's absolutely what's happening. Well, here, Alba, thank you so much for your time, and thank you once again for giving your eyes, your ears to Think Bambi podcast. I am truly grateful for you all. So thank you, take care, and goodbye.